for local Vermont SSAs, and we have muted you and put your videos off, but maybe we'll just do it real quick so that you can say hi, if we can do that. Any of the co-hosts can do that if they.
Well, we can't unmute them. We can let them unmute themselves.
That's what I mean. So. So I think you can unmute yourself at this time if you'd like to call out and say hello while we're waiting for Kaylee to join us.
Hello.
Yeah, there's some folks.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Welcome to the Perseverance Party.
Yeah.
Hey,
I appreciate your perseverance.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Beverly has a question. Can't move a video or someone. Okay.
This is not allowing me to mute myself.
Somebody asked, we'll get into some of this, but SSA is Solar System Ambassador. It is a volunteer role working with NASA and Jet Propulsion Labs. Once a year, they petition or they open up an application process where you can apply to be an ambassador. And they work with you. You get a sort of an inside track on some of the information, and they promote us reaching out and doing these sort of community events. Normally it's in person, but we all know that in person is not a thing we're doing these days for the moment.
For those
Thanks
of you
for putting this on, you guys.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever tied to one of these things at the national level, and if you have a question in the chat, you'll likely never get it answered because there'll be literally thousands of people typing into the chat, and it's kind of lost in the mud.
But there'll be 4 of us hopefully watching things.
Yeah, we'll try to. We'll have a much better ratio. Five people answering to however many people dial in.
Did Kevin Gregoire get unmuted?
I believe he has the
Yes, they
permission
did.
to.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Good.
Okay. Probably should get ourselves rolling here at 2:03 by my clock.
Okay, I don't know where Kaylee is.
All right.
I'm getting this.
Did you get him?
Left him a message.
You should probably email him too.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mute.
And we're going to mute you folks again so we can start going through some of our front end work, and then we'll start the stream running with in about 10 minutes. They're going to start streaming from NASA.
Great. Thank you.
Y'all good? No.
How did you look for it?
Okay, SSAs, you need to unmute yourselves.
I am unmuted again.
Cool. Elaine?
Elaine, you'll need to unmute yourself again. We just did a blanket mute of everybody, and the co-hosts can unmute. There she goes.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess Kaylee will make herself known when she arrives. And in the meantime, let us go to
Introductions.
Our host
introductions.
introductions.
Okay. So this is the gang who we're hoping. Alan Miller was very kind to let us use his school's Zoom link, which allows a lot more people to become involved. And Kaylee, I hope, will be with us shortly. She's got other responsibilities. And we'll do a new share. I would like to introduce Scott. We all can see Scott's nice face there.
Yeah.
I have my cheat sheet. So Scott Turnbull has been looking to the heavens for more than 50 years, a young spectator of the Gemini and Apollo space programs, an engineering student while the early interplanetary probes and shuttle systems were being built. His career in microelectronics and software engineering helps him understand the science and technologies involved in space exploration. Believing you should never stop learning new things, Scott's many hobbies include astronomy, autonomous aeronautics, robotics, and high-power sport rocketry. Scott is currently working in higher education as a research engineer and taking graduate classes to extend his own technical horizons. With 30 years of STEM outreach to various youth groups, he enjoys sharing the history, news, and future of space exploration with students of all ages.
Thank you.
And Scott then goes to...
I am going to introduce Elaine.
And I
Elaine,
will...
we're going to wait for Elaine's picture to come up. We have another headshot here.
Ta-da!
Elaine Fortin has taken several university astronomy courses and worked at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. She's followed astronomy in the news all her life and can present a vibrant presentation of many topics in astronomy. She holds a master's degree from Harvard University in information technology. She has an understanding of how things fit together in space exploration, from the building of telescopes to the launch into space or Earth-based observatories, to orbits, to daily operations, to transmission of data to Earth, to the control centers and delivery of end products to scientists and the public.
Okay.
Okay.
Get back to our... go ahead and interview or introduce Kaylee. You got Kaylee? You got Kaylee?
I've got Kaylee's bio. She's not here
Okay.
yet.
Yeah.
I know, but we'll go ahead and do that.
We'll
and then
introduce her.
Jump
She's certainly a contributing member.
Yes. There you go.
Okay, Kaylee Cross's dad wrote a book for her at the age of 6 about a girl who built a rocket out of cardboard boxes and traveled to the moon. And ever since then, space science and travel have been dear to her heart. Now, 27, isn't she? I think she's 27. Kaylee lives and works as a journalist in Stowe, Vermont. Kaylee loves getting the opportunity to inspire kids and other young adults to think bigger and higher. In her spare time, she writes poetry about space travel and asks her local well-meaning library staff to continue to bring in new space books from other libraries. She has a Bachelor of Arts degree in creative writing from Bishop's University in Sherbrooke, Quebec, and her work in journalism, poetry, and fiction have won prizes in both the United States and Canada.
Okay.
And so Cynthia.
Yeah, do me. Wait, here's me. I'll put me up.
Cynthia Shelton is keenly interested in all things science. A voracious learner, she has spent 10 years living on a 30-foot sailboat, a kind of spaceship lifestyle, becoming a licensed falconer, writing comic books about real life, and finding ways to connect with her communities. The 3 businesses she started were a fine art gallery, a nonprofit for alternative fuels, and a gig economy networking unit. She is not just an artist, but a builder and maker and raw engineer. She likes to explore ideas and develop systems that are so out of the box. There is no box.
Cool. Thank you. And I'm going to go ahead and do Alan's, and then we can find out what, in fact, SSAs do from the guy who knows all about it. So this is Alan. Alan Miller's fascination with space and NASA began as he was seated on his dad's lap as a 6-year-old in 1969, watching Neil Armstrong take his one small step. Since then, he's been one of NASA's biggest fans, and space education has found a way to fit into his classroom curriculum. Recently, Alan had the honor of being a finalist for the Educator Astronaut Program. The opportunity to rub elbows with the folks at JSC only furthered his resolve that NASA is truly the greatest show on Earth, and one that he will continually seek ways in which to be involved. And he's actually teaching today, so he'll be in and out. So we'll see him a little later. So if you'd be so kind, Scott, please tell us what Solar System Ambassadors do.
Yeah, I did a little preview there. Like I said, we're a volunteer group. There's about 1,100 of ambassadors that JPL has signed up across the nation. And if you found our discussion links through your local media, there's also a Solar System Ambassadors webpage out there that has a calendar of upcoming events that we will publish things there too. This is published out there as an event that's happening. So we do outreach. We have the luxury of being able to talk to the to the designers of these spacecraft, the scientists that work with the data. They have telecons for us and video webinars where we can pick up information. They send us all sorts of swag calendars and discussion sheets and whatnot. And our usual mode of operation is to hold local events. I've taught Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, done presentations at libraries, at the Stellafane Telescope Makers Convention. Just reach out as many places as we can and share the good news.
And you had a very cool video that you were showing earlier about what we're going to see today. Could you bring that up while we're?
Yeah, sure. I will do that. Let me share screen. I will steal the share.
And while he's doing that, maybe Elaine could explain how we're going to keep people quiet and what, to use the chat, etc.
Yeah, so we've tried to spread the word about this event across the state. And so there will be people coming in throughout the 2 hours. And we're asking them to not have their picture on to not have the video rolling on them, because that takes up the bandwidth. And
well,
so
look, there's a live button now. I'm going to hit the live button. I haven't seen a live button before on this particular simulation.
Oh, maybe they've gone live with it and it's
well,
actually
they're
got
syncing
the right
it.
count.
So if we were 11 light minutes away, approaching the planet Mars, this is what our craft would look like. What's neat is in this particular presentation, you can zoom out, you can zoom in. So it is currently, whistling along, getting close in cruise stage. So we can just leave that running for a little bit.
So to continue then, so we're asking people to just have no video on their end. And also, if you have questions, put them in the chat, and we will be monitoring the chat. There are 4 of us, there should be 4 of us eventually watching, and we'll try and get your questions answered as things go. We're going to let the NASA live feed kind of be the lead on this, but when there are pauses, we will talk about different topics that we've each prepared, and we'll answer questions. All right.
Yes, if you want to use the chat and put your questions in there, we'll try to catch them and answer when we can. We can either answer in the chat directly if there's something else interesting going on.
What are we hearing now?
That was my phone jingling.
Oh, I thought I'd done it.
I just turned away a call from my family to do this. So on the screen, you see real quick, you'll notice the statistics on the left counting down. It says that we are about 1 hour, 41 minutes, 46 seconds to touchdown. We are 13,000 miles from the landing site right now. Moving along at 6,700 miles per hour.
So Scott, do you have the YouTube footage on?
I should be able to just click.
Can you switch it over?
Yeah, I should.
I have it if you don't.
Should be right there.
Can we all see that? So we're making sure. Can you make it bigger?
I can make it bigger. You see it big?
Not very big. Maybe that's my fault.
Feels my screen.
Okay, folks, if your view standard, there we go. That's nice.
So once again, I'm not sure whether they're talking at the moment. I'm not hearing it.
So as you can see, the 2:15 is when they plan to start, which is like in a minute. And what we're planning on doing is to tell you what we know about some of this stuff, and then listen in for when they tell us good stuff, and then break in and out. If for any reason we should lose contact with this Zoom meeting, please go to NASA TV or NASA YouTube, and you will be able to continue watching even if our Zoom call breaks up.
And you can see that I am here on the YouTube link, and that's what I'm feeding right now. NASA live official stream of TV. I'm going to put it on max again, but we're still waiting for them to kind of kick it off. So while we're waiting for that, we can go back and.
You're not on live feed, actually. You stopped.
You don't see? Am I stopped?
You're stopped. You're not live.
I'm running.
No, you're not. You need to put that little red dot right down there to the right. It says live. This is what live commentary looks like. We are not in the control room at NASA, thank God.
I am looking at a screen on my screen that says coming up Perseverance live commentary, and that is running, and the little nest, the logo is spinning, so it's not a paused window.
No, but the live red thing is not lit. Down bottom left,
Well,
live.
that's a different feed. I can switch to the other feed.
What? There, that's
This is a
it.
different feed.
That's live because it has the little red dot next to live. Beverly still has a hand up. Beverly, if you have a question, do you want to put it in the chat room?
So are you folks hearing the feed as well?
No, no audio.
No?
No audio.
All right,
No,
let
not-
me do a stop share and then a share with sound.
Okay. We did practice this before we started. I just want you all to know. It's much more complicated than it looks.
1:30.
Now hopefully there's sound.
Got it.
Will do.
Okay.
You have sound now?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the NASA live feed. It'll be running, you'll be hearing com traffic. I don't know how many commentators they'll have filling their dead airspace.
Interguidance 1, can you check the WebEx for chat messages?
They're taking the WebEx.
I got the same problems we do.
We can help. her
So
with
I
it.
can maximize that if we want.
Yeah.
Hey, folks who are watching, can you use your non-audio reactions? Can you give us a thumbs up?
So the only downside is when I'm viewing it this way, I do not see the chat room anymore.
Okay.
You
Well,
guys will have to keep your eyes open for questions.
I'm looking at the gallery view, and I'm looking for people who might be asking questions. 2, I see thumbs up. Yep, good. How is the rover slowing down? Last night it was traveling at 47,000 miles per hour. Elaine, you got that one?
All right, thank you for sharing that.
How is it slowing down? Well, it's what's the speed we got right now?
One on in20 EDL ops. Do you read me on EDL ops?
That is from the YouTube.
Yeah, I'm gonna go look at the current speed, and I'll tell you.
I don't think it does a lot of slowing down till it contacts the atmosphere.
Yeah, it's in the when it reaches the atmosphere, there's a part of the shell will be ejected, and there are some 8 little jets that will fire, some of which will fire to do a counter to counter the pull of the fall. They will slow it down to a certain, I don't know if it's 12,000 or there's some critical amount at which point the parachute will open.
I think the parachute's first. So it's the aero shell until it's done with that. And then it drops the aero shell and pops the chutes.
Here's the
And then
image.
here it is right here. Yeah. So the parachute's fairly late in the process.
And it takes it down. Those jets, once they start firing, take it down to 1.5 miles per hour. It's like super slow at that point. So it's gently depositing the lander, the rover, onto the surface.
Plunk.
Well, 1.5 miles. It's a soft plunk.
A gentle bump, hopefully. That's the plan.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm still trying to get the other feed up.
I think the part that's ejected is the part that had the solar panel.
That's the cruise stage, yes.
Yeah, the cruise stage. That's ejected. And
yes,
then
that's well before it reaches the atmosphere.
That's right. And then the parachute opens. And then also the shell, the screen that's got
I'm gonna pop back over to.
Okay. Go for it.
Where's my window here?
The other part that drops.
Oh, somebody else is sharing now. That's why. That's why. Share.
Who else is sharing?
That's okay. I will grab the feed again.
Okay.
And then I will go back to.
We still have your audio too, Scott.
I want this is it. So this is This is right now, this view here is the simulation. It's synced with what's really happening. So the
Yeah.
cruise stage is the sort of the back end of the donut sitting on top of the cone, if you will.
I have OD 131.
So that is the
That's
cruise stage providing power.
Scott,
So
can
the
you
solar
mute your,
panels.
can
My
you mute
feed,
your
I got the same
background
problem you
noise?
have.
Copy, I got you.
That is the feed.
Shut
I
them
have the
down.
same issues you have.
There you go.
No, they just stopped talking.
No, okay.
0 set.
Oh, yeah.
If I go back to there, I don't think me muting my local copy mutes it.
Yeah,
the
no, it
feed.
doesn't. That's the,
I actually, I paused it. So maybe that would
Okay.
be a way to go.
okay.
Let's see if I can just mute it. I muted my copy of the sound. See if that mutes it in the feed. So like so, it says in this simulation, you can see it's still in its cruise configuration. So that panel on the back has solar cells. It was topping off the batteries, providing telemetry.
And
we won't
that
drop that
turning-
until we get to the atmosphere.
The turning that it does, it's 2 revolutions per minute, I believe. And that's been going along. That's been turning like that the entire trip, the entire
Yeah.
7 months.
7
And
months.
that's
Yep.
intentional.
So this, for those who weren't following along from the beginning of this journey, this launched last July at a time when Mars and Earth were relatively close proximity, so that the flight time was only going to be 7 months. It can be much longer to fly to Mars, depending on how the planets align. So this has been cruising for 7 months. They're running some onboard tests, and obviously now they're ramping up to do the most important 7 minutes of the mission, from space to the terrain. They call it EDL, entry, descent, and landing. Let me pop back over to the feed and turn that on and see if they're seeing anything good.
Well, it is. It's actually 6,800
I can't read you.
miles an hour right now. So it has slowed down.
Latest missed distance is from.
They must have
OD
fired some of the
139
jets.
JPL. Missed distance is 731 meters.
Copy, thanks. Still reading you about 3 by 5.
3 by 5. Does that mean not so good because 5 by 5 is good?
5 by 5 would be best.
Tap 2 back on.
Copy, tap 2.
So I'm wondering if the speed difference is relative distances. So there's speed relative to Earth and there's speed relative to Mars, and they're not necessarily the same.
What they had said, it was speed relative to the sun.
Please check your Volca hand.
Okay.
Make sure
Go
that
into guidance.
you are
As
not
long as I've been watching it, the numbers that I've been watching, it's relative to the sun.
Still EVR watchers, so I'm good here. Great, thanks for the update.
So see, they have the same sim running on their feed.
Oh, good.
We're in sync with NASA
Well, that's it. That's the plan.
and with Mars.
So that solar panel,
They've turned off some of the statistics on their feed.
Tap 2, com check. I read
that
you
will
5
be
by.
ejected.
Apologies for that. We had a setup configuration problem. I was just trying to inform you that TAD 3 has taken over the LPA runout plots. Copy. Thank you. TAD 2. TAD 3, is there a latest plot you'd like to share?
this is TAD 3. If you give me a few minutes, I can show you 130.
Copy. You're still coming in around 2 by 5, by the way.
2 by 5. That must be worse than 3 by 5.
Mute the mic.
We can share a joke with NASA. They don't know it.
So I visited JPL just once in my life. It was for a job interview
Oh,
back in 1982.
did they hire you?
We had a difference of opinion. I wanted a job there and they didn't want me to work there. So,
Oh dear.
which was okay. It was my first job interview. It was very exciting to be flown to California to go talk to these folks.
Oh, they fly
They
you
were,
out?
yes, they did. They were, there was an on-campus interview, which I didn't think was going very well. And then at the end of the interview, they said, we'd like to bring you out. So it's like, great.
Wow.
At that point, they were working on the Galileo spacecraft, which was an interplanetary probe. And that probe ended up flying much later than it was supposed to because of the shuttle disaster. Challenger. I mean, yeah, Challenger.
Stand by for that.
For
All
this
visits-
particular diagram is showing you the downlink
Phase 2
stations.
of
These
net
are the
battery
satellite
dish.
dishes that are listening to the various feeds from all of the missions that are out.
Right. The M20, the one up on the upper left, is the one in Madrid. That's the one that's going to be active this evening, because it's evening in Madrid. And the way the Earth is pointed towards Mars right now, Madrid is going to be the antenna that will receive
During the landing.
Yeah.
Kevin has a question about how did they get the rover up to the speed in the first place, in the beginning?
That was the jet. This is
How did they launch it? They launched it on a
Atlas.
Atlas booster
In
last July.
OL1 EBL strategic.
And it was a straight shot. I don't think they did any gravity boost. I think it just shot it right straight out there.
No,
Sometimes they'll do
it spun around.
a
It did
loop.
one loop around the Earth.
Right,
it
but they
did-
didn't do a Venus boost or any of those things.
Not a
Sometimes they'll do
boosting other, just once
another
around the
gravity
Earth.
assist from another planet to help
Yeah.
slingshot it out there. But this was pretty much Earth straight to Mars. If you bring back up that trajectory animation that you had, Elaine, it
Mhm.
shows what basically the distance it had to travel.
Yeah.
And then I'll reshare after we look at that again.
Okay, I'll go find it.
I think the audio will keep playing unless I
And
cancel it. So we'll hear maybe.
animation. I've got the animation. So now I'm going to grab control.
Okay.
Okay. And this is the animation. Coming in. Okay.
Go ahead.
So we're saying here. So
Coming. Yeah.
green is the orbit of Mars. Blue is the orbit of the Earth. The pink is the spacecraft.
Right. So you
And-
can see it launched pretty much a straight shot to Mars.
One, yeah. All right. So when it launched, the Earth was a little bit in front of Mars, and then Mars caught up, and then Earth pulled ahead of it.
Right. Mars is farther out. It has a longer orbit, a longer
Yeah.
year.
This we are 93 million miles from the sun, whereas Mars is 141 million miles. So it's like half as much again. And because it's so much again, their orbit is actually 687 of our days compared to our 365. It's almost twice as long.
Which is why it takes about every 2 years before these alignments happen and we can get a quick shot to Mars.
That's right. And a day over on Mars is 24 hours and I think 39 minutes and a few seconds.
Yep.
So it's almost the same as Earth. Isn't that strange? And why did that happen? But an interesting side note to that is that the scientists who are assigned to track this mission all have to work at a day that is the day of Mars, because when they get up to do their work for their part of whatever instruments they're looking at, it's based on the daylight hours of Mars. So they have to adjust their own personal schedule here on Earth.
They get up at sunrise at Mars time.
Yeah,
They
every
actually
day
wear
it's
two pairs of watches, one for Earth and
Yeah.
one for Mars.
but they'd have to, one watch couldn't go at the same speed.
Nope.
It's a little
And
bit
they
different.
they have an awful time with jet lag because basically they stay up an extra 40 minutes, or they get up 40 minutes earlier or later. I don't know what it is. Whatever it is, it shifts 40 minutes every day.
And their entire family has to do it
longer.
with them.
Yeah.
Anybody who's in the
Yeah.
household, and they have to black
Yeah.
out the windows. So
Yeah.
they basically live
So
indoors.
let me reshare it back to their feed
Yep.
again, and we can.
Yeah. See what's happening back there at NASA.
And the sound.
Distance off is down to 157.2 meters.
What was our previous number?
Previous number was
Bigger. Can we make this bigger?
6.9.
Copy, thank you.
Bigger, full screen.
Well, my experience at the Jet Propulsion Lab was in 1996, and it was just when the Mars Global Surveyor was getting ready to go up, and they had the rover there, and it was an open house. Anybody could come, So away I went, and I landed in Los Angeles and went over to Pasadena and got on the bus out to the Mojave Desert to Goldstone, which is part of the Deep Space Network. And this is where I saw the rover at the time, and it was like no more than 2 feet long. The very first rover that NASA sent up was 2 feet, and there was a guy with a remote control making it go. That's the level. And the one we've got going there now is what, 2,200, 2,300 pounds. It's 10 feet long, 9 feet wide, and 7 feet high. So
Yeah, size of a car.
Yeah.
Maybe
It's
on
grown.
and flight software. Can you meet me on local 1?
So I still think you're not, because you paused, Scott, I think you're not on live. Yep, you're not on live because there's no little red dot next to the words live. Click on live. Click. Perfect. Dare mighty things, it says in the back of the wall. That would be a daunting thing to have in your workplace.
Every day.
Every day. So what job were you trying to get at JPL?
I would have been working on the Galileo probe. I was doing, would have been computer systems engineering for them, either in their computer-aided design shop, most likely. I was graduating with my bachelor's in engineering in computer systems.
Oh, this was quite a while ago.
Yes, this was back in '82.
That red and white logo, by the way, let's see if it can come up on here. It doesn't cut out. That is the official.
Oh yeah, it's coming and going.
Coming and going, I know. Sorry about this, guys. But that is, you can see it on the wall at the back, and that is the Mars 2020 logo. And if you want, there's actually a link that we can put up that has to a packet of handouts. NASA doesn't have the money to send things out in the mail anymore, to print things out and give things away very much. So they put files up, make them available so that you can go pick them up. So if anybody's interested in that, there's posters. Oh, you can't see that either. Posters, stickers, all kinds of
stuff they give us.
Stuff. Yeah.
Hey, Kevin's got another funny comment from Craftsberry. He says, will there be a reception for the rover by any Martians, or will it just be Steve Martin be there with martinis? Martinis. Martianis. It should be a drink.
Well, we were joking and say we wanted the rover to go over and dust the solar cells clean on the Opportunity rover, which Opportunity rover, about 2 years ago, there was a huge dust storm that engulfed the entire planet, and it got so dark that the solar cells could not keep the rover powered, and that rover succumbed to the cold and lack of power, and that was the end. Even though it was a very long-running mission, the Odyssey rover finally succumbed.
Yeah, and at this point, it would be a battery replacement mission, not just a dusting.
That's true. The Curiosity rover, which is already on Mars and working, it uses something called RTG, which is a radiothermal generator. It uses the heat of radioactive decay to generate electricity through a thermocouple. And that's what it uses to charge its battery. So it's not dependent on the solar power. The Perseverance rover will have the same RTG power source. So we don't have to worry too much about solar cells being dusty. I did read last week that the InSight lander, which is also operating on Mars right now, is having some issues. It is down to less than 50% of its efficiency because of dust on the solar cells and the fact that it's winter, getting to be winter, and the sun is lower in the sky for the InSight location.
I'm going to snag this for a minute because there's something interesting going on over here.
Okay.
Let's see if it's still true. Can you see that? Is it moving?
Yeah, you see the sim.
Right, the sim.
Kevin is asking what type of batteries. They do have lithium batteries on some of it. I don't know.
And they also have to keep those warm. There was a very small radioactive decay heater to keep the Opportunity batteries warm enough to survive the night. But it could only do so much when it was without power for days.
And Perseverance will not have the same kind of battery that Opportunity had. It doesn't have the solar powered, so it will be able to survive better, but it won't last as long. Oh, look, there's some Mars facts. 11 minutes and 22
What is this feed
seconds.
that you're sharing now?
This is NASA TV, in case anybody is wondering.
Yep.
And there's a chat, but I can't get to it.
How cold is it on the
It
planet?
is interesting that since it takes 11 minutes for the signal to get from Mars to Earth right now, and it takes 7 minutes for the probe, for the lander to go from orbit to the surface, by the time we know it's starting to travel, it's already done.
Yeah.
It's been on the ground, one way or the other, it's on the ground before we even know it started. Because it takes 11 minutes of signal delay because Mars is so far away.
There's a how cold is it on the planet? And I heard something about negative 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Is that about right, you guys?
It's a little colder. It's colder than that. It's more like 150 or so.
Well,
I think that depends on night. There's a Mars weather website out there where you can actually get the weather at, I think I don't know if that was at the Opportunity rover at that time, and they may have shifted it over. One of the solar system ambassadors maintains a weather station equivalent, like going like you would go to weather.com and dial in a location. You can dial in Mars and it'll tell you what's going on.
If you happen to find that link, maybe we could put it in the chat. That'd be fun.
Yeah, let me go scout for that while we're listening.
These numbers are in Celsius, by the way. It's not Fahrenheit.
Okay, well that would be a difference.
That makes more sense then.
Yeah.
I still think it was 80 Fahrenheit, but negative 80 Fahrenheit.
I've heard
well,
average 90 Celsius, but as much as like 150 is really cold. And you say,
let's get some consensus on that, shall we?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that
damn cold. Like,
Fahrenheit and Celsius, it's at minus 40 degrees. Fahrenheit and Celsius are the same, and then they flip.
But then they split. They separate again.
Yes, they do. But at that point,
it's quite a bit different.
Fahrenheit ends up being colder. So minus 60 Fahrenheit is colder than minus 60 Celsius, I think. Celsius degrees are. No, you're asking the wrong guy. I'm not in meteorology. I know that there's 100 degrees between freezing and boiling in Celsius.
We need
so
more
actually
green.
each degree is bigger than a Fahrenheit degree, because in a Fahrenheit degree you got to go from 32 to what's boiling water, 200 and
212.
12.
212.
212. See, we have teachers here that know this stuff.
Put it in the chat. If you know the answer, put it in the chat. You'll get.
And I was supposed to be off running. I was supposed to go and look for. Let me minimize this window so that I can go to my browser and look for the link for that Weather Mars thing.
What are they doing on your channel, Scott?
I don't know. I just switched away from it.
Eileen, have you got a channel up?
They are looking at
talking
themselves.
Okay.
They're just showing the guy sitting around wearing masks.
We'll just listen to her for a second. Oh. COVID.
Is that coming through? I'll take over.
Okay. Terrible.
Oh, got some lag. Well,
I'm sorry.
so this is live on YouTube from last NASA.
There you go. You got it?
It's a lady who's I think supposed to be talking.
Ah, yes.
She's not talking.
She's blinking though.
She's blinking. Okay, who else has something more
live.
interesting?
Hit the word live. Oh, she's scratching her nose, but hit the word live down on the bottom. You see that?
No, I don't see it.
Just go into the picture.
Yeah, go on the
Left.
picture. I see it.
Click on live. Click on live. There. Click.
Okay.
There.
Ah.
Oh, he's taking off his mask. No sound. Lots of talking heads, more talking heads than we have. Where's Kaylee? Kaylee's MIA. Somebody call Kaylee. I'm gonna email her.
All right, so I have found a weather page, latest weather at Gale Crater, which is where Curiosity is. On February 16th, it was a high of 3 degrees Fahrenheit and a low of -99.
Okay.
So during the middle of the day, it gets to be kind of Vermont weather.
And what temperature, what scale is that? -99
Fahrenheit.
what?
That was Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit.
Oh,
And,
Adventure on
the
says
fifth-
negative.
On Monday, the 15th, it was a high of 19 Fahrenheit and a low of 101.
Adventure
So-
One
so
is
the
saying
question
60,
is-
-60 Celsius is -76 Fahrenheit.
So it begs the question, imagine you took your cell phone out or a flashlight out overnight on a -40. You think it's going to work very well the next day? No, the
Not so
cold
much.
really does havoc with batteries, period. And so they've got the same problem on Mars. So that's why there's actually a little blanket of batteries wrapped like on the helicopter. The helicopter has a blanket of batteries in its fuselage that wrap around the electronics, because it's all electronics, like lots of cell phone technology in that little helicopter. And those batteries charge up by the solar panels during the day, and then they are used like 70% of the charge is used just to keep the thing alive overnight, and the other 30% is available for flights. The helicopter itself I've been told or have heard, is not going to come off. It's strapped, actually, it's connected, bolted to the bottom of the
belly.
rover. And whenever they are ready, I think they're going to give a manual signal to say when it's ready, because they have to decide where to let it go. So they have to be sure with the rover, once it comes alive and scouts the area, where's a nice place that would be a good helipad. And they're going to drive over to that. And then they have these little explosive devices on the bolts that go and break the bolts apart in a special fashion so that the helicopter rolls over on its side and lands on its 4 feet. And then the rover is going to back up, get out of its way, and just go away on its merry way.
And they'll never see each other again.
Well, hopefully we'll see some footage.
As it's flying away.
But the helicopter isn't supposed to come alive for quite a while.
Like 2 months, 2 months, yeah.
And it's only going to make 5 flights.
Hey guys, we've got some questions here.
And
Sorry.
a flight will only be like 90 seconds at a time. So it's just a proof of concept is what that helicopter is doing.
So what are we seeing for questions? I'm still not.
So the questions are, I assume there's some kind of condition evaluation after landing. This is from Brian. How long before there's confirmation that all is well? You guys have heard about the 7 minutes of terror, and that's when you go back to your picture of what's going to happen here. Here we go. Okay.
It'll be pretty quick. I think there's a very low bandwidth status signal. They will know pretty quickly whether they've got any signal at all. So whether it's just a pile of rubble.
There
won't be any images for quite some time. It'll be, I expect, more than an hour before they get everything up and get they have to power up the cameras, and they have to determine exactly where their orientation is. They'll know whether they're level or not, but they don't know necessarily what direction they're facing. So they have to look and find the sun, and then they'll know where they are on the ground. And after they do that, they can direct the high gain antenna to start sending some information.
I think they will be trying to take a picture of it going down, though, because they have one camera that has a dust shield and one that doesn't, and it'll pop off, the dust shield will pop off after it's landed. I think they're going to try to get, we'll find out, the pictures.
We certainly won't have any live footage. We might get, the other thing that they've done is there's an orbiting, there's a satellite, there's the Mars orbiter. For the Curiosity landing, we were fortunate enough that the Curiosity descent was within the field of view of the orbiter during one of the orbits. So they were able to get images of the Curiosity lander, underneath chute as it was, making its descent. I don't know if we're going to be able to be fortunate enough to see the Perseverance descending. Won't be live. This would be something that would probably be released within the week after they get a data download from the orbiter.
There's supposed to be a signal sent out while it's coming down, and it's just a tone. It's like a dial tone.
Just a very low bandwidth.
And another one once it lands, and it's just to say, I'm here. That's all it says. No
Just
detail.
a thumbs up, thumbs down is all we're going to have. But that'll be really quickly. That'll happen immediately. If the tone goes away, that's a bad thing. Because it means that they broke something.
Or that the tone isn't working. Hey, there's a question here from Kevin. I think maybe Kevin needs to become an SSA. It is, when will the RTG radioisotope thermoelectric generator be available for home usage, Scott?
If you've seen The Martian with the one with Mike, with Watney, trapped on Mars because they took off without him. There's a scene in there where he goes off into the hills and digs up the RTG and brings it back, even though he's not supposed to. The whole not supposed to thing means you're never going to see it in your basement. It's a radioactive, supply. It's not going to kill you right away, but it's one of those things where you probably wouldn't want it sitting around your house.
They actually use that technology for Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. And that's like 43 years ago. They're beyond, those satellites or spacecraft are beyond our solar system now. And they're still working. Those batteries 43 years later are still working. If only they could make them safe for people, huh?
Yeah. So yeah, there's obviously solar is nice if you can depend on the sun. It's a nice clean technology for wherever we're going. But the RTG is dependable, which is why they use it for a lot of the deep space probes. Because the farther you get, obviously, the less the sun can do for you.
So there's a lot of talking heads going on in the other.
Yeah, right now we're sharing the profile image.
It's a good time to have people ask some questions. I'm looking. I'm going to change out the.
I should at least be watching the simulation real time.
Yeah, let's see that again.
I can pop that back up. I can hit the share button.
Yep.
Share. Yes. This.
Well, the rover needs to quarantine when it gets there. That it might be a funny question, but that is a very, very top concern. Everything had to be extremely clean that went into that lander device. Not so much the rocket itself, but everything inside, the contents of that pod was incredible. It had what could be baked into the 200 and some degrees was baked. If it couldn't be baked, it was clean. They actually used aerosol hydrogen peroxide to spray and kill any microbes because they do not want to contaminate Mars. And on the other hand, they don't want to bring any Martian contamination back to Earth because eventually these samples that are being excavated or drilled for and this mission will be coming back to Earth. And what they've done is, this is fascinating. There's 43 glass test tubes. 5 of them are considered witness tubes. They are going to be handled just like the ones that the stuff is going to, the ground is going to go in. The 5 of them are there so that that cap will be opened. They will be exposed exactly like the ones that will have content, and then they will be capped after so that anything that the empty one might be found to have will be known to be from Mars, so that when those same things, those same chemicals or microbes, whatever evidence of ancient life, hopefully, whatever it was that it was in the air that was in the empty tube, if it's found in the other tube, they know it came from Mars. It didn't come from Earth. Isn't that clever? Like, who would have thought to do something like that?
Because they don't want to find things that are from Earth that come back, and then they'll think that there are Earth things up there by mistake.
Yeah.
Yep.
Although the planetary protection folks are more concerned about not
Earth microbes being transmitted
not
to
letting
Mars.
the scum of the Earth go into the universe, and not letting the scum of the universe go into back to Earth. That's what they even call it. So what are we're watching the cruise stage
So
separate.
this is the cruise stage. I mean, we haven't, that's
Simulation.
so this says we are a little more than an hour to touchdown.
What happens when you click that live button? I'm all about the live. Oh, does it change anything?
No, we're still an hour and 4 minutes.
Oh.
I hadn't paused it, so it was still synced.
Well, we're not really an hour and 4 minutes, are we? I guess
From touchdown.
Touchdown, from when the EDL happens.
Not from the interface. The interface, I think it's about 16 minutes from when it, normally this simulation runs 16 minutes. And it starts with the ejection or the release of the cruise stage.
Hey. Oh.
So we are probably 45 minutes from the cruise stage ejecting.
Check this out. Wait, not that. There we go. That. Look at that. So I want to know something. You see, they just showed the little thing, the spaceship dropping the rover, and it says on the EDL artist rendition that little piece flies away. Where does it fly away to?
It goes. It
Are
crashes.
you talking about the sky crane part?
Yep.
Yeah.
All those other parts that are not needed, they fall and crash, and they're there forever.
Right. So the arrow, the heat shield will drop off, and we'll be able to see that hopefully from orbit. Yeah. And the parachutes will detach, and we'll find them blowing around someplace.
Yeah.
And the jet, the crane, they call it the sky crane, the thing that lowers the rover to the surface.
Yeah.
After this rover's on the surface, it cuts the cables and it flies off a safe distance so that it doesn't contaminate the landing site. That's the whole. That's why they have the crane with the cables. So they don't want to have the thing come down with jets right down to the surface, because those jets would kick up so much dust that it would likely foul the instruments of the rover.
Sorry, they keep showing that little clip.
Oh, we can take the simulation and run it forward. You want to see it on the simulation?
It's the first leg of our sample return relay race. There's a lot of work on the line.
Starting about 10 minutes before atmospheric entry, we get rid of really the spacecraft part of the rover that's been supporting us.
We come screaming in to the Martian atmosphere at 12 to 13,000 miles per hour.
And the heat shield is what dissipates all that initial energy through friction.
The vehicle will continue actually flying itself through the atmosphere. It's sort of like a transforming vehicle that went from spacecraft, and now it's kind of like an aircraft actively guiding itself.
When we're going slow enough, we deploy a parachute.
It's the biggest supersonic parachute we've ever sent to another planet. It's critical for slowing down the vehicle.
Perseverance's entry, descent, and landing borrows heavily from that of Curiosity.
But fundamentally, Perseverance is a different rover. She's bigger, she has different instruments.
We've added a lot of smarts on the inside to make it more capable so that it can deal with the landing site that we've given.
The science team identified Jezero Crater as basically an ancient lake bed and one of the most promising places to look for evidence of ancient microbial life and to collect samples for future return to Earth. The problem is it's a much more hazardous place to land.
When you look at Jezero, all you see is danger. How do we go to a site that we never thought was safe enough to go to before? So the heat shield, which has protected us all the way through entry, is no longer necessary. We need to get that off so that we can actually see the ground. And we can see the ground in a couple different ways.
Perseverance will be the first mission to use terrain relative navigation. So while it's descending on the parachute, it will actually be taking images of the surface of Mars and determining where to go based on what it sees. This is finally like landing with your eyes open. having this new technology really allows Perseverance to land in much more challenging terrain than Curiosity or any previous Mars mission could. Amongst the rocks and the craters and the cliffs, these things are hazardous to the rover, but these are the things that are interesting to the scientists.
Once Perseverance has figured out where she is, jettison the back shell and parachute and light up our rockets. Those rockets help us steer to a safe landing spot that's nearby.
That descent stage takes us all the way down to about 20 meters off the ground.
That's when we start the sky maneuver. And once the rover has hit the ground, the descent stage will cut loose from the rover and fly away to a safe distance. Surviving that 7 minutes is really just the beginning for Perseverance. Its job, right, being the first leg of sample return, to go look for those signs of past life on Mars. All that can't start until we get Perseverance safely to the ground. And then that's when the real mission begins.
There you go. That's there it is in a nutshell.
It's supposed to last 1 Martian year, which is just about 2 of our years. And after that, it's considered the mission's complete. But what usually happens with these missions is they're made so well, they just keep ticking. And we've got missions out there that were meant to go for a couple of months, and they go for years. So as long as they're still working, they are doing the things they were built for. The experiments on board, they just keep going to more places and doing more of those experiments, and then sending the information, the data, up to the orbiter, the Reconnaissance orbiter, and then the orbiter sends it back to Earth. There's Kaylee.
Is she back?
She's writing something.
I don't know. You see my screen?
I don't know.
You see my screen? You see this?
I see
Yes,
it.
we see you wiggling your.
Go away.
By the way, there was a Windows tip I heard that if you take a Windows use tip, if you grab a screen and you shake it like that, if you shake it for a few seconds, it'll minimize all your other screens. So if you're looking to like clear your desktop real quick and share a screen, that's just something I never knew existed until this week.
I'll have to try it. I'm not going to try it now, though. It's dangerous.
Okay, I want to hear from more people out there. How close to the ground can the spacecraft maneuver to clear bad terrain before it's committed? Wow, that's a good question.
So I heard there was a talk yesterday or the day before they were talking, and it never really hovers. It's not really it doesn't stop. But what they will know is they'll be able to adjust the guidance. So they'll be able to map it with the radar and the images, and then steer it into a particular direction. So it's not so much how close to the ground can it maneuver. It's more like I've got fins and I'm going to direct myself into a particular location, on a trajectory. So it's maneuvering all the way down, I guess, is the answer to the question.
And none of this is controlled by the Earth, by the control center here on Earth. None of it is. It's all automatic. It's all programmed. These are robots. And what they have loaded on them, they have loaded these maps. That's what Scott was talking about. They check the images. They know where they are on the planet because they've got all these tons of these maps that have been gathered from years of orbiters going around and taking pictures. So they know exactly where they are.
Speaking of which, wouldn't the latest 2 orbiters to join the Mars planet group there, the fleet, the United Arab Emirates and the Chinese orbiters, wouldn't they be able to see what's going on today? I mean, wouldn't they have an eye on the planet?
Sure, if their orbits were in the same area, sure they could.
So that's a question, right? Because I know more about the Earth. Earth satellites typically go around, like the ISS goes around once every 90 minutes.
Right.
So if it turns out that you're landing on the side of the planet that the orbiter is not on, you're not going to get any images during the descent.
And if you're like the UAE orbiter, which has an elliptical, if you're on the far side of the elliptical.
Yeah, I don't know if we've gotten enough international cooperation to say, hey, could we use your uplink on your satellite for our lander.
Well, NASA people did work on the UAE.
Yep. They're definitely a cooperative.
Mhm.
Some are more cooperative. For instance, I don't think we'll be using the China orbiter that just went in there last week. So there's there's UAE's just arrived. There's a Chinese orbiter that just arrived, and it has a lander as well that's going to come down later this spring. Right now, they went into orbit. So they did things a little different. They approached slowly and they went into orbit around Mars versus this Mars Mission 2020 is coming in hot. It's not going to go into orbit. It's going to grease the atmosphere and land.
Yeah, some space missions are orbiters that don't land. Some have an orbiter and they have a lander. A lander is just a device that goes and plots. It sits there, and then there'll be maybe some sort of experimental things, arms or something that happen right from the lander. And then there's the kind that have rovers. And each of these is extremely complicated and has to be so automated. So and we've got a litter that the planet itself is only, what is it? It's half the size of Earth. So it's got a diameter of about 4,100 miles, the diameter, because Earth is 8,000. So half the size of Earth. But when you look at the map of all the litter of spacecrafts that have gone up there.
Yeah, we've dropped a bunch of stuff on there. Some of them never operated again.
Yeah.
So much for planetary protection.
For the in the history of Mars exploration or attempts to Mars exploration, as a race, as a species, we're running about 50% success. Half of the stuff we send there doesn't survive.
And will that
NASA has done better, but there's a lot of wreckage.
Yeah.
And we have had our own share. We had our share too. We had a polar observer was supposed to land, I think it was 2012, and it didn't survive. There was a software glitch. The parachutes separated too early, and the thing landed rather rapidly.
I thought that problem was because there was a conflict between pounds and kilos.
That was a different one. That was another European probe. I think that was I think it's a Beagle. That they didn't, right. It was a newtons to foot-pounds thrust. It was some units conversion.
Like the inches to centimeters problem.
Yeah, but I think it was units of thrust, and they got it wrong. So instead of aero braking and slowing down in the atmosphere, it plunged too deeply, and that was it.
And that was on the Mars Express orbiter in 2003. That's where that happened. Whereas the orbiter itself survived, and it's still going round and round and round.
You're talking about the polar,
the Beagle, the one that had the Beagle.
Beagle, okay.
That failed.
So the Beagle itself was the was that the European rover? It was a joint mission.
It was Italy, European Space Agency, and USA.
Yeah.
So there's
and because we had different countries with different units, somebody didn't dot the I or cross the T properly.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick. Anyway, do you know what constitutes minimal acceptable terrain, crater size, tilt, and so on?
I don't. I know that the sort of the ground clearance on these things is, they can get over stuff like the size of a basketball. Anything bigger than that, you're not going to straddle it. Mm-hmm. It's a car basically, and it's up on those 6 wheels. And you wouldn't want to land on anything that was going to, obviously touch the bottom of the rover. As far as how the wheels themselves, I know that they have driven up some fairly steep terrain. I'm not sure they'd want to land on fairly steep terrain. Curiosity has gone up something like 20 degrees, I think is what they were climbing up a crater wall.
The reason that they chose the Jezero crater is interesting. And because we have nothing else has landed there before. It's 28 miles wide, and it has it's obviously an old lake bed, because they can see the river stream that came in and the delta, the alluvial deposits from that river, and they can see a river going out. So it had a feed in and a feed out, inlet and an outlet. It was definitely a a lake at one point. And that's why they're choosing it, because one of the main purposes of this mission is to look for ancient evidence of life. And they're looking, they don't expect to see bones or shells. They're expecting to see remains, like chemical mixes of chemicals that would have been left over from a soft shelled microbe,
I just popped up the share. This is just the silent simulation.
Hey,
Yeah.
do either of you have a nice picture of the parts of the rover? Maybe Elaine, you could dig first.
I can do that. Yeah.
Because there's a question of, does the body of the rover articulate in order to go over uneven surfaces easier? And the piece I would add to that is I was just listening to a scientist who had worked on the tires. Because the Curiosity's tires were falling apart in their big holes, and so the Perseverance has aluminum tires that are the thickness of a dime, and they have to be that thickness in order to prevent them from breaking apart.
Okay.
And they can't be tires.
I brought up my.
There are tires.
I brought up my tires.
They can't be rubber because, of course, they would freeze and then shatter in the cold.
Yeah. So they definitely toughened them up. Curiosity has had holes punched in its tires. And they have a place at JPL that is the robot torture area. And they just have a whole setup that looks like Mars, and they run these simulations, real live mechanical simulations over and over and over until they find one that doesn't break when they punish it.
So are you seeing me with the
Yes, we see the rover.
Yes.
Okay.
Click on
these are the 6 wheels. They're all independently driven with all kinds of I'm going to say hydraulics, but maybe it's just springs, because I would think any liquid would have a real hard time at night. We can click on anything here. We can look at parts. There's the arm. You can animate that.
Do they have an animation for the suspension? They was talking about how it can get over debris.
Yeah, let me go back here and see if I can see.
If you look in my at one point I had built a roughly, I don't know, 3/4 scale opportunity rover for demonstration purposes, but it shows the the 3 wheels on each side. They're hooked up such that 2 wheels are on one bogie, and then it's connected up to the 3rd wheel.
Technical term?
Yeah, it's called a double bogie suspension.
There's the suspension here.
Yeah, so the double bogie suspension means that it can basically climb over things that are quite tall, get over a rock.
NASA and JPL do such a great job these days with just pouring out the information and doing great little viewing informational things. I mean, if you want to know more about this stuff, go straight to the source, obviously, but we're obsessed with it.
There was a question in the chat about whether the body has any articulation, and I'm not aware that there's any articulation in the body itself. There are these double bogies on each side for the wheels, but the main chassis is on a pivot point, basically rocking, forward and backwards on that wheel axle, the upper axle. But there is no front end versus back end tilting, I don't think.
What about the speed? It goes a whopping 4.2 centimeters an hour, doesn't it? Isn't that it? It's like
I think it can go faster than that if it had a mind to do so. That'd be pretty slow.
Like, they expected something like 200 meters a day.
Right.
So they have to be a little faster.
Like that.
See, this part is really cool. This is Mastcam Z or Z. It's 2 identical cameras, so they're capturing stereo vision. So when they get this data files back to Earth, you can actually put your red and blue glasses on, and you can see the depth that the robot is seeing.
So that mask will be one of the first things that they want to deploy. when they land, is they will raise that mast before they do much of anything else, so that they can get a sighting on the sun and get their orientation.
Of this mission is to be able to detect if there's actual life that's preserved, ancient life.
Did you hear that?
Do we want to put that back on?
Did you hear
Who
it?
had that feed? That wasn't
No,
me.
I don't hear a feed. I just hear us yammering at each other.
There was a feed. So we've got
How are the wheels driven? There's a separate motor in each wheel. It rotates around the vertical axis, and obviously it rolls.
A separate motor in each wheel.
So it can. So if this thing wanted to turn on a dime, it can turn. Basically, it's got four-wheel steering. The front and back wheels can turn in different directions, so that it can spin around in a circle right around its own body length.
They have hazard cameras. So these are the ones down at the bottom looking for hazards. It doesn't want to get stuck hung up on something. It's got front and rear ones, navigation cameras, a super cam. This camera was actually, I believe it was the French. We have, I think, four or five other countries that built components. I believe this one, the super cam, no, it was Norway. This was from Norway. So that's really cool about American NASA spaceships or spacecraft, is that often they participate in conjunction with other space agencies around the world.
Which the European folks are trying to be the pickup for the samples later on.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
The coring drill. This is a pretty cool thing. See those?
There's
there.
actually, if anybody wants to go find it, there's a, I'll find the link and give it to you. It's, you can practice driving the rover. It's not the real rover, but it's like a simulation that you can play with. I'll find that for you guys. That's pretty fun.
These drill bits. Apparently there was Insight. Insight's mission was to go and drill. And it turned out the drill bits weren't hard enough, and I guess they didn't do the job. It turned out that the regolith, the material, you don't call it Earth, but you don't call it Mars. The dirt was just harder than they expected. So it was, that failed on Insight, even though it's still up there and still operates. The drilling doesn't work. These are going to are much more powerful drills, and they only go in just over 2 inches. When they go in, they take a core sample, they bring it up inside that device, this blue outline drill device, and then that's a robotic arm that brings them inside and then drops them down into the interior of the rover, where there is another area where it captures the core sample and then
Ready to drive a rover?
and sticks it into the test tubes and then stores it. And it's going to store it on board until at a certain point. I don't know how they determine if it's somebody in the control center down in Pasadena or if it's automated, that they decide a place they're going to safely cache all these samples. They might even just keep them on board the rover, because later on in this, hopefully in this decade, they're saying in around the 2026, 28, they're hoping to get the mission sample return, the Mars sample return expedition go up there and then go to that that cache, grab those things, and then send them up. They're going to take a device that'll lift off from the surface of Mars and take it up to an orbiter, and the orbiter will fly it back and drop it in the desert in Utah. That's the plan. There is some good video on that too. That whole operation of the way the one robotic arm goes and drills and grabs the stuff and sticks it inside the tubes. All that is visible on the web, on the NASA
Just
site.
took a quick check of the simulation status. We are now about 40 minutes from touchdown. The next activity will be about 25 minutes from now. They will stop the spinning of the spacecraft prior to ejecting the cruise stage. So that's what we're looking at, about 40 minutes before this thing is down.
And if in that 40 minutes you want to try the Drive a Rover on Mars game. I just put the link in the chat room.
I also put a link in there. Somebody had asked for some additional details about the tire, the wheel drive. I pointed to a page that showed a pretty good photo of the hub motors. So basically, the center of each wheel is a hub motor, and each one of those is mounted on a vertical shaft that can rotate and steer independently of the other corners. So all four corners can steer. You know, it can crab sideways. It can go in opposite directions, so it can spin around in a circle. It's all very useful when you're stuck in the sand to have lots of options for how you steer your motors.
Or the dust, yeah. If you the
Yeah,
dust.
well, that's what killed the first. So Opportunity died because it was caught in a sandstorm. Its twin, Spirit, did not survive a winter because it got stuck in sand, and it could not navigate to a position where it could get a good summer, point its cells towards the sun for the winter, the Martian winter. It got stuck in a sand pit, and they were unable to navigate out. So there's all these things can get you if you're not careful.
I'm just going to grab the oops, stop share. I'm going to grab the control here for a second. I just want to show you something.
I feel like we should have like a special Martian drink, like the
Martian
martini.
drink.
Somebody else said.
Like the guys in Martini. Are you seeing this now? This is the again, a trajectory, not an animation, but an actual trajectory. And what we're showing is Earth at launch. So everything's going counterclockwise. So Earth at launch, and at launch, this is July 30th last year. Earth was here, Mars was here. So we were behind Mars. So we blasted off TCM1. Every TCM is a firing of an engine, of a jet to change, to make a correction in the course or to slow it down. So we had TCM1 after 15 days, and then
I believe that's a trajectory correction maneuver.
Okay. Then at 62 days, we had another one, and then 62 days after launch, 60 days, 2 days before the landing, we had a third one, and then we had 3 recently in the past 2 weeks. And these are the ones that are taking it from 47,000 miles down to 12,000.
Yeah, so approximately 8 hours ago was the last time they fired the engine, TCM6.
Okay. So where are we with the live feed now?
Oh, I don't know. Let's take a look.
Yeah.
I was looking at the sim, not the live feed. The live feed is showing right now. The live feed is showing the sim, which is what I was showing just prior.
I've got talking heads. I mean, I'm sure they're saying, you know.
Well, yeah, I'm doing the YouTube live feed. You're doing the NASA TV live feed. Yeah.
I've got YouTube.
Yep, YouTube just cut to EDL operation lead sitting at his desk.
Oh, so this is the young fellow whose essay was chosen, and the name Perseverance was taken, was accepted. Let's see.
What feed are you?
This is not YouTube NASA Live.
Right now, we're still in our talk. We're still sharing your trajectory picture. So should I put up one of the feeds?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I will switch back to a feed.
Okay, I'm just going to stop that.
Yep. So
That's not that interesting.
stole that away. Now you should be seeing, hopefully, the Dare Mighty Things control center feed again.
The control center
with audio.
Those are pretty cool little blue lights they've got.
Yeah.
Desk, is that supposed to keep the low light, or is that just to look cool?
I don't know. Or if it's just spiffy looking.
Spiffy.
Unfortunately, when I do this share, I do lose my chat window.
That's okay. We'll work the chat.
Here's an interesting tidbit. So the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter was launched by NASA in 2005. It's just kept on ticking and ticking. So when And when it was built, they knew all it was going to do was go around and around the planet. But so it was built in such a way to accept upgrades in the software so that it could be used for future missions. So it continued to be used, I think, with Curiosity, and then probably Insight, and definitely with ours. So what they did actually is upload brand new software to the space to the orbiter from the Earth, and then use the comparable software in the control center to talk to it. So I thought that was pretty cool, because I mean, in 15 years, technology changes a lot. So
is that you?
This is a kid
Sophia?
who named, this is a kid who named Perseverance, and this is the girl who named Ingenuity, the helicopter.
Ingenuity, yeah.
They had a essay contest.
Yeah, and normally these kids would be at, they would have a front row seat, but of course with COVID, they're all staying home. Too bad.
They got to see the lift off. They got to see the launch live.
There's a question about whether dust storms were a concern in the. I don't think this is a dusty. I think the dust storms are seasonal and mostly in our summer. But once again, the Mars has a 2-year orbit, so its year, a Martian year, takes 2 of our years, I think.
So within that 2 years, there's going to be a dustier period than others, but I guess that is not as important as it is to the fact that they were lined up. So I don't know when that's going to happen.
The orbital mechanics. So if there was a dust storm right now, it would impact their ability to do the ground imaging that they would need. The winds, interesting. The air is so thin on Mars that unlike the movies you see where it blows people off of ladders and tears up things, the wind doesn't have a lot of force because it's very thin. It's like 1% of the density of our atmosphere. So it can be a very windy day, but it's not going to blow you over. But if dust is in the air, it's a different problem. You lose the ability to do the optical imaging of looking for rocks and looking for crater walls and such.
The scheduling of the helicopter's flights is actually done with taking into consideration when those dust storms might happen. So what they're going to do is around 11 o'clock in the morning is when they're going to do their initial flights, because by then the batteries will have had enough, or the whole vehicle will have had enough time to warm up. And then they don't want to be going in the afternoon because of the dust. And they want to be shut down well before that. So it's a 90 minutes. So if they start from 11, by 12:30, they should be done. So that's just a start.
And that's a daily cycle versus these continent-sized dust storms that just cover everything for days on end.
Check out this girl's lamp behind her, to her left shoulder. I want
very
that
nice, very retro.
They look like
Mars. We are gaining evidence for the answers to these questions, more evidence than we ever had before. And I think that's so exciting.
Do we know who this is?
It is. And I know you get loads of interesting questions from kids. Have you gotten any about Mars specifically?
Oh my gosh, yes. Everybody loves Mars. It's in movies and books and TV shows, and everybody loves Mars. So one of the things that I get asked a lot is that, it's called the red planet. Why is it red?
Iron.
Well, it's red because it's literally rusty. The top layer of soil on Mars has iron oxide in it, or rust, and rust has that brownish red color. So it's red because it's rusty. And also because it's red, they ask, is it red hot? Is it really hot on Mars? And well, no, actually, it's colder than the Earth. It's farther away from the sun. So as you would imagine, it's a little bit colder than the Earth. It also has a really thin atmosphere. So the heat that it does have, it has a hard time keeping in. And so it's a little bit colder. But then I also get asked, what would I weigh on Mars? That's a really fun question. So on
1/3.
Mars, it's a little bit smaller than the Earth, so the gravity there is weaker. It's about 3/8 the gravity that we have here on Earth. So if you weighed 100 pounds here on Earth, you'd weigh 38 pounds on Mars, or 100 kilograms here on Earth, 38 kilograms on Mars.
St. Johnsbury Fairbanks, you can
Those
stand
are
on
all
a
super
scale.
fun. I think even some adults want to know the answers to those questions, Emily. Now, why do you
Yeah.
think it's so important to educate kids about science and give them that great foundation?
Well, science is the language of nature, and learning about science and learning how to think like a scientist means you are learning how to systematically seek out truth in the world. You are learning the scientific method, you're learning how to be a critical thinker, and honestly, those skills are great for whatever you end up wanting to do in life.
True. If you want to be a scientist or an opera singer, that holds true. And what are you most excited about today?
I mean, humans are launching a robot to Mars.
She's a very excited person.
As a captain every day. I think in all of the hecticness that is going on today and all of the nerves.
I can't imagine this job.
I
You know, these folks that have worked on something for
moment to
10
sit
years.
back and remember that we live
And then
in
it's
a
like
time
these 7
when
minutes are going to
humans
decide
have the
whether it worked or
ability
not.
to send a robot to another planet, and that is just, that's so cool to me.
And Mars is the only
It is
planet
very cool,
entirely
Emily.
populated
Take
by
a deep breath.
robots.
Thanks for joining us here.
Thanks for having me.
Sending it back to you now, Raquel.
Thanks, Marina. We are offering lots of ways to ride along with us to Mars. Now put yourself right into the action now with
yeah, we
our
did this.
Perseverance photo booth. You can pose next to the rover,
put the
place
link
yourself
for
in our
this.
mission control,
Here's my
and even see what you might look like taking a selfie on the red planet.
walking on Mars.
You'll also have a chance to sign up to send your name to Mars on NASA's next flight to the red planet. It's all available at go.nasa.gov/Mars 2020 toolkit.
There you go.
And joining us now is JPL Chief Engineer and Landing Veteran Rob Manning. He will be breaking down key moments coming up, and very few people know more about landing on Mars than Rob, going back to the Pathfinder mission in 1997. Thanks for joining us today, Rob.
Yes, thank you very much for having me here. And what a wonderful experience.
He's even got a Mars 2020 mask.
Look for the peanuts in the picture.
We,
See the
we're
peanuts?
just also excited here, anxious.
That's the tradition there.
Very hopeful.
Rob, I have a question for you. There is a
my
landing
lucky
tradition at
peanuts.
JPL that involves eating peanuts for
There you
the
go.
shot. Can you tell us how did that start?
Yes, it started in the mid 1960s. What happened was we had a series of missions that had failures. The Ranger program in the early 1960s, one after another, failed. And what happened was one day, a fellow by the name of Dick Wallace on Ranger number 7, on the 7th attempt, decided to bring peanuts to the ops area just before the launch. And guess what? That mission worked. Now, we're not supposed to be too superstitious. We're engineers and scientists after all, but we love tradition. And ever since then, before launch and before critical events like entry, descent, landing, we have brought out peanuts and shared them with the team. And it's been really a wonderful little experience. And so this is something we will do. We're doing right now. And it's something that we just can't help ourselves. It's just part of the
Oh,
experience.
they're going to pass them along. Oh, that's got to
well,
be good
speaking of
for
the experience,
COVID.
Well, that was from 8 years ago.
Alive this year.
Well, this year we're passed out little packets of peanuts to the team, and they can sneak one peanut in their mouth as part of to keep the tradition alive. But you know, this is part of the COVID experience. But we can't leave this one undone. So this is what we're doing, and this is going to help us land safely.
All right, thanks, Rob. I have some questions for you a little later on, but we're heading back to Swati Mohan, who is part of the landing team. She'll be calling out key milestone and events as they happen from Mission Control. So let's listen in right now.
So right now we're still about 20 minutes from entry, and the EL phase is giving a last minute confirmation of what will be happening in the upcoming changes to the vehicle, just to remind the team.
This will allow us to steer our trajectory as we make our way through the atmosphere. This is one of the things that allowed MSL, the Curiosity rover, to land where it did. And we're depending on the same type of entry guidance this time around to help get us very close to our target. as we make our way through entry, finish our guided entry profile, we'll do a maneuver called heading alignment, where we point toward the target and get ready to deploy the parachute. But before we deploy the parachute, we need to get rid of a set of balance masses that have been giving us a center of gravity, or CG offset, throughout the guided entry phase. So these are called the entry balance masses. We also call this maneuver SUFR, S-U-F-R, or straighten up and fly right. So we'll go ahead and eject those masses when we get a trigger from the GNC system telling us that we're at the appropriate range to the target to do so. As soon as we deploy those, we will no longer have a CG offset, and we'll be ready to deploy the parachute 17 seconds later.
Right where the Perseverance team is sitting now, what's in store for them as we approach landing?
I'm going to hold here for EO prep as we're about to start that anchor.
Copy, piece 2. And activity, please call that out when it's ready.
Are you guys getting
Copy,
a full
Slate.
screen of this?
Make the announcement now. Okay. Maggie's make the announcement that.
Hey,
There you go.
better?
I'm watching the simulation off on the side in another window just to keep an eye on it. We are, just as they said, we're coming along on
Now, Rob,
about 8 minutes to when it despins and about 23 minutes to touchdown.
for them as we approach landing.
Well, this is the this is the nail-biting time. Fortunately, we still have ones and zeros coming, but very soon, as we approach cruise stage separation, the transmitter on this rover we've been using all the way to get to Mars is going to be turned off. So we will lose our ability to see ones and zeros. But the good thing is, once the cruise stage is gone, there's another radio that will continue transmitting a tone, so that like a flashlight that will allow us to at least see that the vehicle is
Oh God.
still on, and that color of that flashlight tells us a little bit what state the rover's in. But soon after that, it won't be very long before we'll be able to hear more ones and zeros coming from the spacecraft. So this is a really exciting time, and it's just important to remind people this is there's a lot that can go wrong in a day like today. There's thousands of things that have to go right.
Yeah, we had success in the past landing on Mars. You'd think it gets easier, but it really doesn't. Why is it still so difficult?
Well, it's because it's involved thousands and thousands of things, hundreds of thousands of lines of code. There's 79 pyrotechnic devices. Each have to work perfectly. One critical wire short, or one key thing mechanism that doesn't work or breaks, and it's mission over. And so it's, and it's very easy. We're human beings. We're not perfect. Mistakes can be made. We count on each other to find our own mistakes, and we work very hard to learn from the mistakes of the past. We've had many failures. Remind people, roughly around half of the missions to Mars over history have failed. And so that could happen today too. Even though we've had a nice, wonderful string of successes in the United States, it's still still a bit of a gamble that we have hoped that we have erred in the side of luck, and we've stacked the deck and loaded the dice to make this thing succeed. But if we do fail, and something bad happens today, I can tell you, we're going to learn it. We'll have the data that tell us what happened. We'll know why. We'll figure it out. And if we are allowed, we will pick ourselves up and get us back on the horse. And if Congress and NASA allow, we will try again. As we always do, we will learn from our mistakes.
And what are the possible scenarios we could be looking at today?
Well, there's things like one of the key stressful elements for all of us is parachute inflation. But just even separating from the cruise stage is a pretty major event. Lots of devices have to work properly. Certainly, the heat shield separation, getting the descent engine started. There's no less than 16 rocket motors that have to work, 8 to control during entry, another 8 to control it during landing. I said, it's a lot of stuff and it all has to work. And guess what? We haven't done this before with this vehicle ever. This is this first attempt to actually land. We can't try this on Earth. We can't do, we don't have test pilots to try it out on this planet before the big show. So this vehicle is doing it for the first time. We've done the best testing we can do in bits and pieces, but you know, it's as best as we could do. But I think our team is up to it. This team is the best. It's a diverse, intelligent, amazing group of people. People from all over the world who worked on this, not just here in California, but all over NASA, contributors from aerospace, universities, countries around the world. It is just an incredible, remarkable engineering achievement. And I am just so proud of this team.
Thanks, Rob. Now let's listen back into mission control.
For our Vermont folks here, I just unmuted Kaylee, our remaining ambassador has joined us in the meeting.
Currently preparing the heat rejection system that has kept the thermal system cool inside the air shell for about the last 6 months. This will allow the spacecraft to more easily cut the line in upcoming.
Yeah, I know. Oh, yeah, he's a realist. He said, you know, we're going to pick ourselves up. It's like, well, we haven't fallen yet.
Yeah, I got some sweaty palms over here myself, but it's just excitement.
We have now.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've done enough engineering to know it's awful.
Pyrotechnic system that
the tension. It's like this, so you know, this is it. You build something and
things in the cruise
send
stage
it millions of miles away, and it has to work without you.
System working, and it's
it'll be over with before you even know it.
Preparing for the upcoming cruise.
Right, I feel like
the
that
answer
7.5
is done.
minutes is just going to go like that.
15 seconds by powering off all the devices on the cruise stage in order that they can be safe once the cruise stage is jettisoned.
Yeah, this cruise stage has been very reliable.
We are firing our first pyros to vent the HRS liquid and gas.
I had the opportunity to speak with Alan Stern, which was the project lead for the New Horizons mission that went out to Pluto and beyond into the Kuiper Belt. And as they were approaching Pluto, like a day before, they did some updates to the computer, and basically it crashed. A day before, you know, a 10-year flight to its mission, it hung up. They rebooted it, and it all came back online again. But it's like, talk about
12.5 minutes from the interface. We are coming upon cruise stage separation in 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
Cruise stage separation.
What's happening now, Rob?
Okay, well, we're just waiting. The rover is completely in charge. It's doing all the things we taught it how to do. It's all built into the software. We've tested it over and over and over again.
Here, we'll put
this team has spent
my Mars hat on
a day, 7 days a week testing this thing for years, and so this is really the culmination of all that work. So this vehicle
Mars hat. It says I signed up for Mars.
Push that cruise stage away. Once it gets pushed away, the entry system, there's the rover inside, but the rover is still in charge. It's going to get ready to take the vehicle.
I got my boarding pass for the
your boarding pass, yeah.
Mars and prepare for entering the atmosphere.
He seems really nervous. They seem. Oh my God! How young are they?
This won't be long. Be prepared for this event.
We're about 1.5 minutes from cruise stage separation. About 11 minutes, 20 seconds from entry interface.
If you think these folks look young, you should watch one of the SpaceX launches where everybody in the company is a 20-something.
Then out, things happen fast.
Switching to MFSK tones. Telemetry will have stopped.
We're going to lose our telemetry.
Is confirming that the spacecraft has switched to broadcasting tones. These tones are received directly from Perseverance, but have very limited information content. We won't receive real-time information until about 9-10 minutes from now, once the Mars Reconnaissance orbiter starts relaying information from Perseverance. We are under 1 minute from cruise stage separation, about 10.5 minutes from entry interface.
Getting exciting. I have to admit, I am quite anxious, but I'm very hopeful that this machine
Heart rates are going up.
Yes.
You're seeing the heartbeat tones.
Okay, that means that there's no more ones and zeros coming. It's just the vehicle telling us it's still alive.
We're continuing to receive tones from Perseverance, standing by for cruise stage separation.
And remember, this happened 11 minutes ago.
Right.
Those tones started emanating from the spacecraft 11 minutes ago. It took that long for it to get to us. Oh, here's the separation. Cruise stage is going away.
Right at the fake camera.
We have indication that cruise stage separation has been confirmed by the spacecraft.
In about 16 minutes.
Sound effects, but there's no sound in space.
We're off on a good start.
In about 1 minute, Perseverance's landing software will wake up and begin the final preparations for entry. The first action it will do is to fire warm-up pulses with its entry thrusters. These pulses ensure that the spacecraft gets the thrust that it wants during entry interface. We're about 9 minutes from entry interface.
Okay, so now the vehicle's on its own. It's turning itself into the direction of facing the heat shield toward Mars, and will eventually hitting the top of the atmosphere. We're not far away. This is going to go very quickly from here on out.
This team's been waiting to see this since July. This is
confirmation that we got shadowed by the cruise stage as it passed through our beam to the Earth.
Telecom indicated actually that we could see a signal that the cruise stage went between the Perseverance entry capsule and Earth. So we saw a little blip, the data stream indicating the cruise stage separation. We have confirmation that the vehicle has started warming up those entry thrusters. Warm-up pulses have begun. At this point, the spacecraft is trying to stop its spin from the cruise 2 revolutions per minute down to 0, and then will turn to its desired orientation from entry. It will separate the 2 balance masses that has kept it balanced during all of cruise. This will allow the entry capsule to have lift when it enters the atmosphere. We have confirmation that the spacecraft has turned to the desired entry attitude. We're about 7.5 minutes from entry interface.
Elaine, Scott, and Kaylee get backup.
Okay, the vehicle is pointed in the right direction. Thrusters are warmed up and doing their job. And now we've spun down from 2 revolutions per minute that the vehicle had the whole way to Mars. It's a spin-stabilized spacecraft. And then from here on out, it's going to just be a bullet, and it's going to control its orientation and attitude via rockets on the back of the back shell.
Points carrier lock. Sorry, and we're the DTE from Radio Science from Green Bank reports carrier lock. You see the carrier on the downlink.
So nice to share this with all of you out there.
Flight level 1.
We are continuing to wait for entry interface. We're about 6 minutes and 45 seconds from entry interface. We have confirmation from Greenback that they are receiving direct to Earth telemetry via that path. The spacecraft Perseverance is currently transmitting heartbeat tones. These tones indicate that Perseverance is operating normally and has nothing significant to report.
Notice the in that simulation view, the landing site is actually now coming up over the horizon. It is in its last phases here. You know, we're going to go from there to the edge of the horizon showing on that globe.
Okay,
we're done.
And now we wait.
So the simulation is in real time now?
Yes, it has been actually since we started our call.
As soon as we get to the top of the atmosphere, it'll be very quickly, which is the entry point. It won't be very long before the atmosphere will start getting thicker and thicker. It's going very quickly at a fairly steep angle of 15 degrees into the atmosphere. And as it starts to slow down.
Just under, we're about 5.5 minutes from entry interface. We're still receiving heartbeat tones. We expect to continue receiving heartbeat tones until about 5 minutes after entry. At that time, Perseverance will be no longer in view of our antennas here on Earth. About 90 seconds prior to entry, the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter should begin receiving telemetry from Perseverance and streaming it to Earth in near real time. There are a few expected short outages, such as when we have a plasma blackout or when we enter the peak heating phase. Aside from these outages caused by the plasma blackout, antenna switching, or high dynamic events, spacecraft events, we should have telemetry until about 90 seconds after landing. A plasma blackout is when the signal from Perseverance isn't strong enough to make it through the superheated, super fast air flowing around the spacecraft all the way down to Earth. Once the temperature drops below that,
pause that video.
We acquire the signal from Perseverance. We're currently about 4.5 minutes from entry interface. Perseverance continues to report heartbeat tones, indicating everything is nominal.
Okay, what we're looking for now is Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter should be in view soon of our vehicle and be able to listen to ones and zeros coming from a separate radio that's really designed to talk between spacecraft.
MRO reports the electro radio is powered on, ready to receive signals from the lander.
Okay. Yay. MRO is ready and able and waiting for to hear from our rover.
Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter has reported that it's ready to receive the signals from Perseverance. It should be in a few minutes here. We're just
Flight level 1
from entry interface.
That MRO is the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter that
we don't
was put into orbit in
what he said, but land safely. But we really need it for our own health and well-being today to keep our nerves under control. But
around this time, a second spacecraft, MAVEN, should begin picking up telemetry from Perseverance and will continue to record that telemetry until several minutes post-landing. We won't get that data for several hours after landing as it's being recorded and then will be forwarded to Earth later. We are continuing to receive heartbeat tones, indicating that everything is nominal. We're currently at about 3 minutes until entry interface.
If the orbiter can talk to Perseverance and also Curiosity and the other robots, couldn't they all talk together on a Zoom chat on Mars?
Very soon we'll be getting ones and zeros.
Or Zoom on another planet.
On the rover.
If they have a browser window.
Okay, Skype.
Now this communication is interesting because that signal is coming from
the entry interface is nothing more than just an arbitrary place in the sky that we've defined to be above the atmosphere. But from that point on, there's definitely atmosphere, and above it there isn't.
We are 2 minutes from entry interface. Perseverance.
So the signal goes from the spacecraft. It goes up to the orbiter. Oh, it's going to the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. Orbiter sends the signal back to Earth. It is received in Madrid, Spain. A great big telescope there, and from there it's sent by wire down. No, it's sent by through the air.
Another satellite.
to Goldstone, to JPL over in Pasadena.
Yep.
It is using another satellite.
There's a second orbiter. The MAVEN orbiter is recording. It's not
That's right.
rebroadcasting, but they're going to have a second set of data squirreled away just in case.
Yeah.
As it gets closer to Mars, Perseverance is actually being pulled in by gravity and accelerating. By the time Perseverance reaches entry interface point, she should be going just under 5.4 kilometers per second. We're at about 90 seconds from entry interface and standing by for Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter to pick up the telemetry.
Right now it's going, according to the sim, it's going 19,000 kilometers per hour as it's whistling in and increasing that speed, as you said, because it's being tugged in by the gravity till it hits the atmosphere. It's falling.
Orbiter MAVEN is actually, it went up in 2013. It's actually newer than the Reconnaissance Orbiter, but its technology didn't, it wasn't chosen to be the one that transmits. It just records and then transmits later. It can't do it like a real-time transmission.
I think it also has to do with where it is in the orbit of the planet. I mean, if it's on the backside, obviously it can't real-time stream to us.
MROs are in receive mode.
We have confirmation that the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter is now relaying data from Perseverance. We're about 30 seconds from entry interface. Perseverance is going about 5.2 kilometers per second and is about 190 kilometers altitude above the surface of Mars.
Confirm your eject data flow.
Not now.
Got seconds from entry interface. 5.3 kilometers per second and an altitude of about 150 kilometers from the surface of Mars.
They talked about ejecting basically a weight so that the thing is no longer balanced. It's sort of tilted to a side. It's got a heavier edge, so they can steer it through the atmosphere.
Perseverance is currently going 5.3 kilometers per second at an altitude of about 120 kilometers from the surface of Mars. The spacecraft is now waiting until it begins feeling the atmosphere of Mars to slow it down. Once there is enough atmosphere, it will start controlling its path to the landing target. Navigation is also confirming that we can see a little bit of that slowdown of the atmosphere on the Perseverance entry capsule. Our current velocity is about 5.36 kilometers per second and an altitude of about 67 kilometers from the surface.
A little over 4 minutes to touchdown.
Blackout at this point.
The vehicle should be doing its turns right now.
Camera has lost lock.
Perseverance. We have indications that Perseverance is now performing bank reversals in the atmosphere. These are the steps in order to control its distance to the landing target. Perseverance has just passed through the point of maximum deceleration and has indicated that it felt approximately 10 Earth Gs of deceleration.
MRO has lock again.
Yes, 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 yes.
We saw a small outage of the UHF telemetry from Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter during that peak heating phase, likely caused by the plasma blackout. Perseverance is still continuing to perform bank reversals in the atmosphere to control its distance to the landing target. Perseverance is going about 1 kilometers per second at an altitude of about 16 kilometers from the surface of Mars. We have entered heading alignment, which means Perseverance is no longer trying to control the distance to Mars, but to the target on Mars, but instead is flying straight to the target.
Interesting. Then let's see, it's live again. The live sim I'm watching shows the chutes have deployed, but that's.
So the simulator is in 11 minutes and 22 seconds in advance of our reality.
That's true. Yeah. So if this is, I'm watching basically as if I had a magic window to Mars.
Our current velocity is about 500
without delay
meters per second at an altitude of about 15 kilometers from the surface.
MRO's reporting good telemetry lock.
We are coming upon the straighten up. We are starting the straighten up and fly right maneuver, where the spacecraft will jettison the entry balance masses in preparation for parachute deploy and to roll over to give the radar a better look at the ground. The navigation has confirmed that the parachute has deployed and we are seeing significant deceleration in the velocity. Our current velocity is 440 meters per second at an altitude of about 12 kilometers from the surface of Mars.
Won't be long now. Parachutes don't hang on that long before they cut loose.
To subsonic speeds, and the heat shield has been separated. This allows both the radar and the cameras to get their first look at the surface. Current velocity is 145 meters per second at an altitude of about 9.5 kilometers above the surface.
See how controlled they are if it really works, if they start jumping up and down, or if they're more subdued like the
See how many hugs we get.
Yeah.
COVID hugs.
Google hugs.
Perseverance
Elbow bumps.
now has radar lock on the ground. Current velocity is about 100 meters per second, 6.6 kilometers of the surface.
Okay. It'll be looking for its preferred spot and steering itself.
On the parachute, we're coming up on the initialization of terrain relative navigation and subsequently the priming of the landing engines. Our current velocity is about 90 meters per second at an altitude of 4.2 kilometers. We have confirmation that the lander vision system has produced a valid solution and part of terrain relative navigation.
Valid solution.
We have timing of the landing engines. Current velocity is 83 meters per second at about 2.6 kilometers from the surface of Mars. We have confirmation that the back shell has separated. We are currently performing the divert maneuver. Current velocity is about 75 meters per second at an altitude of about a kilometer off the surface of Mars.
TRN 50 Bravo.
We have completed our terrain relative navigation. Current speed is about 30 meters per second, altitude of about 300 meters off the surface of Mars.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on.
We have started our constant velocity accordion, which means we are conducting the sky crane, about to conduct the sky crane maneuver.
We've lost direct to Earth tones.
As expected. As expected.
Sky crane maneuver has started.
Woo!
Come on, baby.
We're 20 meters off the surface.
Shake those peanuts.
Yeah. Need more coffee. What's it is? Come on, come on.
Tomorrow.
UHF is good. Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance, safely.
It's done.
Yay! We didn't bend it. Still transmitting anyway.
It's done.
At this point, the descent stage has flown away to a safe distance. Perseverance is continuing to transmit.
There we go. Transmitter is operating.
Through Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter to Earth.
There we go. Now we've got 2 cars driving around on them.
And 3 stationary.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And a couple of orbiters.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh.
Tomorrow reports are still getting telemetry from the lander.
All right. So now they'll wait for get the other antennas powered up.
Touchdown confirmed. We're going to wait for the images.
Wow.
This is so exciting. The team is beside themselves. It's so surreal. Stay tuned. We might get some pictures.
Great.
Video is actually the NASA TV video behind you.
God, that's incredible.
So much has been riding
There's
on.
a lot of smart people there.
Yeah, we just heard the news that Perseverance is alive on the surface of Mars.
It's alive. That's the tone. They second the tone from
Flight.
the rover.
Flight, we have seen the completion of EDL 3000. Copy activity.
Where's
That
it
is as expected.
Hey.
MRO is still seeing a strong signal from the lander.
So the lander isn't the rover. The lander's that structural device that let it fall, that let the rover fall from it.
The news that Perseverance is alive on the surface of Mars. Congratulations to the mission. And looks like we have some more news in. It looks like we're getting the first image.
There we go. That was quick.
Here, look at the first image.
To see something.
Flight, this is OL3. I have the target.
Come on, get a bigger screen.
When you are ready.
Come on, somebody's iPad.
Go for it.
Come on, baby. Show us the pixels.
7 years in the making.
Yeah.
Flight, I'll be moving in, showing you the safe zone that we've landed in.
Yeah, where? I want to see.
Hey,
there's a picture.
So there's the dust cover, protected lens.
Yeah.
Things will get better when they take that off.
Yeah.
Now, it comes from the engineering cameras known as the hazard camera. This camera is mainly used to help the rover drive safely around Mars, and we will get higher resolution photos later in the day.
There you go. Down and level.
Okay, so
it's shadow.
NASA TV as it goes along. That's not social distancing there.
Yeah.
They're too excited.
Wow.
I'm going to cut away from that's all right.
You're very faint.
Steve. Stand by for Steve.
Your volume is low.
Why isn't it Mars 2021? It's because it lifted off in 2020.
Yes, launched in July 2020.
Okay, so
You did.
We answered all the questions.
You did. You led the team. You made it happen.
they're congratulating each other
We have any more questions from our local Vermont crowd here? I mean, we're nobody here is an expert. Nobody's on the mission. We all do other things. This is just a passion for following the messages.
We're volunteers.
Yeah, we do get the ear of the engineers. We can ask them questions and find out some things occasionally.
Yeah.
we get special training. They give us a heads up on some things. So it's all a matter of trying to keep improving ourselves.
Yeah. And if anybody out there wants to is interested in doing something like this, I think once a year, every couple
every September,
they will, NASA will open up the applications. And if you want to just do a search on Google and find out where the say application NASA Solar System Ambassador, you'll get to the link where you can actually leave your name and address, or just write and get into an email and let them know you're interested. They'll get in contact with you when the application time is open and you can apply. You have to apply for this just like any other job. You have to qualify.
This was a more rigorous. They actually checked my references. They had to provide 3 references. They called everybody on my reference list. They called them and interviewed them and said, "What about this Scott guy? Is he real?"
Yeah.
I don't think my real job interviews did as thorough a job chasing.
Yeah,
references.
really. Anyway,
somebody asked. Brian asked, "What's the next exciting thing to look for?" Probably some more news from Mars, right? Because they're going to be driving over the next week or so. They'll start sending up some better pictures. There's other things going on though. There is earlier this fall there was a probe to the OSIRIS probe at Bennu, which touched down and grabbed a sample of some asteroid rubble, and it will be leaving the vicinity of Bennu and heading back towards Earth the second half of this year. I think it lands about this time next year. Look, there's somebody peeking up over the edge there.
Wait, what?
What happened there?
It's a bit cropped. Looks like I'm wearing a mask. I'm just socially distancing myself.
Yeah, launch of the James Webb in October. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, James Webb is coming up. James Webb, that's a space telescope.
Yeah.
It is a mostly infrared imaging. It's not quite like Hubble. It's going to be parked out at a Lagrange point millions of miles from Earth, so it won't be serviceable like Hubble was serviceable. But they're launching the James Webb Space Telescope. There are other missions coming up. Let's see what other missions are coming up. They're going to, well, obviously this spring they'll be flying the Ingenuity helicopter on Mars. Should be flying sometime before summer. So I have a Twitter feed. I have a Instagram feed. There's Facebook pages out there. NASA has an excellent set of series. If you just watch NASA Live will keep you up to date on mission briefings too.
It'll just keep you up. That's what it'll do. Background a lot of times. I'm putting up our emails and stuff. So one of the things that we can do as SSAs is we can deep dive into a particular topic you're interested or your group is interested in and give you a presentation just on that, because there's so much stuff. If you go on nasa.gov, you can never come out because there's so it's been 50 years. They've pretty well documented everything. And so what I tell people is I'm never going to be an expert on everything, but I could become an expert for you on something and then give it to you in a lovely presentation on it.
And I'm going to put a plug in for the Lamoille County Stargazers. We've got a very young astronomy club here up in Lamoille County and centered in Morrisville, where we actually have an observatory. It's 90 years old, but it's getting revamped, and next spring we're hoping to be able to use it again. Hopefully, if COVID dies out, hopefully. So want to spread the word. We want people to enjoy this observatory. It's been under mothballs for quite a long time. It went through some hard times, and but lots of work has been done on bringing it back up. And we've held a few open houses and talks, but we want to get more regular with these things and having people come and actually look through the telescope. And we have amateur astronomers come when we do this, who bring their own telescopes. So you get to look through many different telescopes and see things up close. And it feels so awesome when you see the rings of Saturn, moons of Jupiter. And
to dovetail into that, you mentioned the amateur astronomers. I'm a member also of the Vermont Astronomical Society, which is one of the sources of those astronomers that go over and set up telescopes. If we get the all clear signal from the governor and company to have social gatherings again this summer, there will be viewing opportunities. We have an observatory in Heinsberg, a nice dark spot up on a hillside, where we set up telescopes. Public's invited at those public viewings to come and see the various galaxies, nebulae, the planets when they're in evidence. That's the Vermont Astronomical Society. There's a monthly meeting. We've been doing those meetings as Zoom meetings. It's the first Monday of each month, 7:30 at night. Runs for about an hour and a half.
Are we good? We're good.
Look at that.
Of our little rover, it's safe.
Yeah, well, we still have 27 people hanging around.
Yeah, so I think I saw a peak of about 32, 33 was the sort of our high water point. I didn't capture a list, so I won't be able to give. NASA's always interested in the demographics that we reach out, so they want to know.
How do we do that? I can
if we could grab a participants list that we have there, and well, we can get the count. At least we can give the count. We know that we've reached, at least somewhere between 2 dozen and 3 dozen participants in the call.
Anybody who watches Brattleboro TV and their affiliates. So yeah, we get to.
I don't see how to grab the list of participants.
Our emails, and if you all want any more information from us, please feel free to give us a holler. And the year is going to be full of events. Space.com actually has a full event of internationally, everybody, not just NASA, but everybody.
Well,
and I'm around to do these sorts of presentations as well. Like say, if folks have an organization, I've done outreach for Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Astronomical Society, college campus. A lot of them are socially distanced over this last year, but feel free to reach out if you've got an organization that wants to have a talk about rovers or space probes or manned missions, historical, future.
Yep, we'll just put it in the chat again. That's a good idea, Eileen.
Yeah.
And the more of these that the more of these that we do, better we get at it.
Yeah. We'll become Zoom experts.
Yes, that was not expected. I started this last year and I had just done my first live presentation and boom, COVID intervened.
Yeah. I'm starting my 4th year, so I was lucky to have the first 2 were all in person, which is very nice.
Thank you, BCTV, for the programming. That's great. We'll be sending you more stuff in the future, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Unless anybody else has anything else they would like to say, let's wrap up this puppy.
Yeah, make sure you go out and check out the NASA feeds, NASA news sites. They'll have pictures as they come down over the next few days.
And tell people about it. People who it didn't get onto their radar. Amazingly enough, I listen to it all the time, so it's hard for me to believe that anybody could be thinking.
Yeah, I know. Like I have to, a closet full of wardrobe. It says, visit Mars, satisfy your curiosity, and there's a little rover hanging out up there. A shirt for every occasion. So how do you not wake up every morning and pick your wardrobe based on what's happening, in space?
I haven't looked. Is there online shopping for t-shirts and things?
Oh, sure. Yeah, this was probably a Woot, shirts.woot, W-O-O-T was this particular shirt.
It's not a NASA.
There's a lot of NASA shirts you can get out there. NASA swag. Say this cap I signed up for Mars was a look, the brim is invisible because it's blue and my green screen is a blue screen. So you're seeing right through my screen. Look, you're seeing through my head to the picture of me behind.
on Mars.
Yeah. So there is things, and for anybody that's in the Essex area, I have some NASA calendars that they shipped to me. I have some stickers. I have some swag. Can't afford to put them all in the mail, but there are some stickers.
Maybe through the
Good
library.
stuff. Swag is nice. I do libraries. Maybe I'll be able to fill up the Essex library. So that's a sticker, Mars 2020, little information on the back. Like I say, normally I carry a messenger bag around full of this stuff and hand them out at whatever events I go to.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be there again in the after times.
Yep. The after times.
Okay.
What do you think? It's like post-apocalypse.
So,
hey guys,
all right.
Alan, take this away. Alan is blocked. Alan, do you take this away? Am I closing down here?
I think you probably could hit you could probably close the meeting out as host.
Okay.
Since they're host, our acting host.
Thank you for coming.
Are you going to send in the report? Cynthia, you're going to do the report? Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Bye-bye.
Glad you joined us.